cut and what grants?
You refuse to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question.
You were asked, a law degree,
excuse me.
Okay, so joining me now is the senator who asked her a few of those last questions that Senator Schiff mentioned, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He sits on the Senate Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committees. And, sir, I think we've been having some technical challenges getting you up with us. So fingers crossed you can hear me. I think you can. All right, we're good. This will be better than when I think Siri talked to you during one of my last interviews with you. But listen, just watching this hearing today, having covered and watched dozens and dozens of these, obviously you've participated in more than I have, but I've seen my share over the years. I was very struck by the tone that she took with senators and the way that she was essentially saying that she couldn't speak to many of these questions. What was your reaction to the way she presented herself today?
Well, I was really struck, Casey, by how aggressive, combative that Attorney General Bondi was today, particularly with Democratic senators questioning her. Senator Blumenthal, for example, was right after me, and he asked some of the same questions I had at greater length about the indictment of Jim Comey. And she immediately launched back at him, attacking him with issues raised in his last senatorial campaign that were utterly off the point and had nothing to do with the hearing, but were ad hominem attacks at him and his truthfulness and his integrity. That repeated a pattern that began with the very first Democrat to question her, Senator Durbin of Illinois, and continued until Senator Schiff of California. So it was an unusually aggressive and combative performance by Attorney General Bondi. A key part of what the Judiciary Committee does is conduct oversight. And I was glad that we had a long and full oversight hearing today, 10 minutes for each senator to ask a wide range of questions. But it felt more like a boxing ring than like a senatorial oversight hearing.
Sir, what is your top concern right now about the way the Justice Department and Pam Bondi's Justice Department is handling these various affairs? There's a long list. We talked about some of them at the top of the show. But if you had to name one thing that you are most concerned about, what is it?
It'd be very hard to pick just one, Casey, but the way in which President Trump is explicitly directing Attorney General Bondi to go after political enemies of his, and the aggression with which she and the president were willing to fire a Republican nominee as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District, to install as U.S. Attorney someone with no relevant prosecutorial experience in order to ensure a prompt indictment of the former FBI director, and then the ongoing list of additional enemies of the president. This is a chilling politicization of the Department of Justice, and something that Attorney General Bondi promised wouldn't happen when she was in her confirmation hearing before us now many months ago.
Senator, one, of course, running theme here is discontent as well among Democrats with among Democratic voters with how hard Democrats are fighting back against the Trump administration. It's part of why the government is currently shut down. I'd like to put to you, are you at the point where you think your leadership should come to work with Republicans as the president is essentially arguing that perhaps these federal workers will not receive back pay, these furloughed workers, or is the pain not where it needs to be or where it would have to be for this shutdown to be resolved?
Casey, let me try and pull apart your question for a minute, if I could. First, it is just illegal for President Trump to threaten not to pay furloughed federal workers. That's because of a statute, a law, that President Trump himself signed in his first term. So he can threaten that, but it's not legal. Federal workers furloughed under a shutdown will be paid when the government reopens. Second, between the Republican majority in the Senate, in the House, and the Republican in the White House, they control whether or not this government is open or closed, what threats they're making, the ways they're trying to impose as much pain as possible. This is a Republican shutdown. And I think what matters more than anything is that folks who are watching understand why, in particular, why I'm standing behind our course as a caucus. That's because of health care. Earlier today, I met with a group of heart doctors from Delaware. Several days ago, I met with the head of the Hospital Association from Delaware, and they are pointing to alarming signs that health insurance rates are jumping double-digit for Delawareans, that our emergency room wait times are already long and are getting longer, that the price of drugs and pharmaceuticals is going up. All of these are the result of decisions and actions by the Republican majority in Congress and President Trump. President Trump promised to reduce prices and to make America healthy again, and instead he's raising health care costs and leading to Americans being sicker. So I think this is an important moment for us to stand up and say, we will work with Republicans and reopen this government and move ahead with appropriations when they change direction from imposing health care cuts and costs on the American people.
And finally, sir, before I let you go, I want to ask you about the ways Democrats do have, right, to bring